Hi, everyone, and welcome to Around the Ladder. I'm Erika Steinberg, and this is the podcast about career paths that don't follow the usual script. We've all heard about climbing the corporate ladder, but careers often zigzag, they stall, they take unexpected turns. If your journey hasn't been a straight climb, you're in the right place. I love the idea of going around the ladder and finding a path that fits who you really are. So, on this show, I get to talk with people who have taken unconventional routes, by choice or by chance, and they found success on their own terms. Today's guest is someone who I've known for several years now, Jennifer Gillman. Jen's mission, which really speaks to me, is to help unhappy law firm partners and solo practitioners get more from their careers. Whether this involves moving to a different firm, merging their firm into another, or taking action to transform their current role into something better, satisfaction with their work makes a dramatic difference in their professional and personal lives. Her superpower? Jen can usually tell in 15 minutes or less what a partner needs to do to improve their career. Jen received her JD from NYU School of Law. After 12 years in practice and 10 years at a recruiting firm, she launched Gillman Strategic Group in 2018 to focus on helping rainmakers find their exact right, perfect fit firms. You can learn more about her and the 6 pillars of becoming a happy rainmaker at happyrainmakers.com. And I just learned that that's going to be a book too, so we'll have to talk about that as well. Welcome, Jen. I am so glad to have you on here. It's such a pleasure.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
So let's start at the beginning because you really know of what you speak. You spent 12 years practicing law before you made the leap into legal recruiting. What did those early years look like? Like and really how did they shape the way you work with your clients now?
Well, I think that law schools probably, accidentally seem to prepare law students to be litigators and not for any of the other parts of law. And they don't really explain that law firms are businesses and how law firms have to be profitable and all of that. And so while I really enjoyed my career, I didn't even think about doing something transactional or going in-house or whatever. I really thought graduating from NYU Law School that, going into a big firm and making partner was the be all end all. And a lot of lawyers come to the career after having been, straight A gold star students, working as hard as they can to get into the right college, the right law school, the right firm. And then they get into the practice, and it's not, sometimes it's very interesting at first, but not something you can see yourself doing for 40 years. So I was a general business litigator to begin with, and I thought it was so cool that I was being paid to learn new things. I got sent to the library because I'm so old. There was an actual library with books at the time, and they would tell me, go read the treatise on environmental law. We have an environmental case, or you have to learn about securities law. Now it's time to do employment. This one's trademark. And I got to spend days just immersing myself in learning something, which I thought was fantastic. And it was only a little bit later on that I decided I really wanted to get to be very good and expert at one area. And I thought about the two things that I was really enjoying that I had touched upon so far was soft IP and labor and employment. And I was kind of comparing them. And I decided I really liked the people aspect of employment law. I thought that I was looking back, thinking about one of the big cases that I spent a lot of late nights on. It was a securities litigation where one successor company was suing another successor company. It was really hard to get into it because nobody cared anymore. Everybody was like, "Oh yeah, that was the old CFO. He might, I don't know, I don't remember. I don't." And finally, I was trying to describe this huge case that I was working late nights on to my grandmother at Thanksgiving. And she was from a family of lawyers, so she understood the legal aspects. It wasn't that that was hard to do, but she said, "Well, why are they still fighting about it? Why don't they just move on and make a new deal, do something else?" And I thought, yeah, it's really hard for me to get excited about a corporation doing something to another corporation. I like the people aspect of it. So as
Mhm.
much as I thought trademark was really a cool area, I didn't think there would be enough personal
Yeah.
interaction, and I was really excited about employment law, which I very much loved for a lot of years. But I did find that as I practiced longer and longer, I didn't so much like the litigation aspect of it. Like it used to be really exciting to go to court or take a deposition or do something. The more I did it, the more I realized I love the part where someone called me for help and I could solve their problem before there was a litigation, before
Yeah.
there was a big problem, and make them feel better. And okay, slow down, take a deep breath. What happened? Why are you upset? What happened? How can we fix this now? Okay, that's fine. And I became the person who didn't judge them, who, they could come to me and say, "All right, I messed up. I lost my patience with this employee. I fired this person without warning. I did this thing, and now I need your help to get out of it." And I didn't chastise them. It wasn't like going to the principal's office. It was
Yeah.
we partnered to find a solution. And that was the part of my practice that I ended up liking the most, which it was surprising to me because I thought I was graduating law school to be a trial attorney, to be in court every day. And the more years I did it, the more I realized I didn't really love that part. I loved, the advice and counsel and training aspects, the talking to people and solving the problems part of it.
Yeah. And that makes so much sense because as you were describing that, what I'm hearing is your clients are coming to you and you're not judging them. They're not worried about getting in trouble. They are coming to you as a person who is genuinely saying to them, "Okay, let's talk about how we solve this." And so I could see how when somebody comes to you, especially if somebody came to you in your recruiting life, when you moved over into the recruiting firm and would come and say, "I'm at this big firm. It's supposed to be the end all be all and I'm not happy," that you could react with this place of not having judgment. Whereas, like, their family, parents might be like, "What do you mean you're not happy?"
You're in a top five firm. What are you talking about?
How are you not happy?
Know
This
how
is,
much they're paying you? Just,
yeah,
you know, yeah. So I mean, as a law student, going through the process of applying for jobs during early interview week used to be the big deal. Now I hear it's getting to be the timing's a little different. We were all looking for the biggest name firms that we could get into. And when I was telling people I didn't want to go to a big firm in New York, they were looking at me funny. They're like, "You can. Why wouldn't you? Why?" So I could see why people are concerned about prestige or what other
yeah,
people think of it. But also it's not only because they're being shallow, they're wondering on my resume, it looks sparkly and pretty right now because I went to this great school and I'm at this great firm. What if I take a chance on a smaller firm or going in-house or doing something else with my law degree? Can I come back if it was the right choice?
hmm,
If it turns out not to have been the right choice, is that it? Is that an off-ramp forever? And things are a lot more fluid lately than they used to be. People used to leave law firm life to go in-house, and that was the permanent choice. And now
yeah.
there are lawyers moving back and forth multiple times during their career. So there are some choices that they don't talk about in law school, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if that's still the case. I mean, I understand that it's changed, but I haven't spoken to any current uh, law school attendees, law school students but that would be an interesting thing to find out. Now I'm curious about it.
Well, I do hear that they're still not really emphasizing the role of relationship building
Yeah,
in college and law school and keeping in touch with everyone and the role of even junior associates in business development and getting started
yeah,
on that early. And that was my complaint millions of years ago when I was still a lawyer. So it doesn't seem like that is wholly changed yet.
yeah, yeah. So you're in big law, then you realize this, you have this change, and you go to a New Jersey recruiting firm. You're there for a decade, which is no small amount of time. And
Yeah,
then
no,
you decided,
actually, I would have stayed. I really did like what I was
really?
doing, and I was very lucky. I had this fantastic mentor who also liked advice and counsel and training and drafting and all of that better. And we worked really well together, and she was willing to carve out a way for me to do pretty much just what she did, which would have been very nice, except that I had had my first child
Hmm.
and there was no way to carve out a way to be at home and to be at work and to feel like I was succeeding in both places. I think law firms are doing a little better with that. And I think the only nice thing that came out of COVID is that we all realized that people could have a hybrid schedule and sometimes
Yeah.
be at home and still be very effective in their jobs. If I could have worked from home a couple days a week and seen my oldest child on the weekends, it probably could have been a little bit different, but I knew that I was gonna, the part-time option at law firms at the time was 4 days a week, and the fifth day was always like motion calendar or something where they're like, "Oh, well, we're sorry, we need you in the office. At least you're not working on the weekend, so it's part-time." And that just didn't seem like a thing. So I we had moved to the suburbs, and my commute was longer,
Hmm.
and I was looking to go in-house because I knew I would be able to do more advice and counsel and training and business and to be closer to home. So I was looking for
Yeah.
an in-house job in New Jersey when I met a recruiter who called me for the job I was already interviewing for. And he said, "Well, if you don't get it, I think you would like recruiting." And that's how it
Really?
started. Yeah, it was like very much things are sometimes meant to be. And it seems very random, but maybe it wasn't.
No, no, because when I think about what you're doing now, you spend 10 years there. At that same firm, that's where you went?
Yes.
That's amazing. I love that. And then, I mean, and now 2018, it's been almost the same amount before we know it. It'll be the same amount of time that you
Yeah.
will have spent, with your own business. I mean, was that a like when you did come to that crossroads of, okay, do I stay here now at the recruiting firm or do I launch something on my own? Was it a gradual decision? Did you know you wanted to do it? Like, how did you just jump right in, take some time?
I'm very much an accidental business owner. I didn't
Me
intend to be
too.
an entrepreneur. I was an English major in college. I specialized in the Victorian novel, which obviously prepared me to be a business owner. And
Okay,
when
I was a history major undergrad and I focused on the Stuart age in England. So,
exactly, so we're both, I mean, clearly that's just like getting an MBA. I know.
which I did after I got my history degree.
So I did not get an MBA. I went straight to law school, straight to working for big firms that were managed by other people. And even when I was at the recruiting firm, I wasn't in charge of running the business side of things. I didn't think that was something I was interested in. And the guy I worked for was wonderful to me. He taught me everything I needed to know about legal recruiting, and he let me have a very flexible schedule because by the time I joined him, I had a baby and a toddler.
Mhm.
And I was able to be a very present mother and still have a career. And I really, I'm very grateful that I was able to do that. I would get to be the pizza mom and the field day mom and all the things that, the stay-at-home parents usually get to do and the working parents usually have to skip. I got to participate in, and it was really great. But when my kids got a little bit older, I found that once they get to middle school, the school never wants to see you again.
Yeah.
So in grade school, they needed my help every day. And the minute sixth grade started, it was like you drop them off and
Hi.
walk away, and that's it. And so I had a lot more time, and I was going to the office more and working even more hours. And I was starting to realize that I really didn't want to fill a slot. I wanted to speak to the individual lawyer and figure out what made that person happy and represent them kind of like an agent. And we were clashing a little about that. I can see now that I'm a business owner and I have people reporting to me that I was probably a very frustrating employee to have. But I just wanted something different. And, I'd be talking to somebody and say, "Oh, I'm glad I got you on the phone. Yeah, they're looking for, a fourth year real estate associate at this place." Yeah, but what's going on at your place? Why did you call me back? What's happening?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that sounds awful, but this other place is going to be twice as bad. You don't want to there. I have a great spot for you. They're not looking right now, but let's have lunch. Let's work on your resume. Let's get you ready because when they are looking, this is the spot. And the poor guy who ran the company was like, we're never going to make any money this way. We can't do this. And I said, well, I really want to represent the attorneys, not the law firms. And he said, well, the only people you could do that with is, if they're like partners and they have their own business. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And he was, skeptical. He's like, you're just going to call partners? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
aren't they gonna, they're gonna get mad? Oh, okay. So what's the worst that could happen? It's not illegal to make a phone call. I'm calling them because I want to know if they're happy where they are or if they might want to move somewhere else. And I have the expertise to help them if they want to move. So the worst that could happen is they could say, I'm happy where I am. Or they could be rude and slammed on the phone, or they could even say something not very friendly to me, but like they can't get me arrested, right? I'm not anything wrong. So I could probably maybe get a lot of rejection. Maybe I'll have to leave a lot of voicemails. Maybe I won't be able to get through their legal assistance. But like what else could happen? He was like, fine, try that. So
Yeah.
I paid for the database myself because he really wasn't supportive of it. He didn't think that we were going to be able to place partners. He thought that the associate market was what he was focusing on. I paid for the database myself, and I did find he was right. Cold calling partners is not the most effective and efficient way to reach them because there are many layers of people to get through, and they're usually busy, and you get them and they say something like, what? Maybe not the best time to start a conversation, but I did place two partners that I met
Yeah.
cold calling that way. And then he started paying attention because he was like, "Oh, your thing kind of works. All right, I'll pay for that database. I stand corrected. That's good." I'm like, "Great. So let's like grow it bigger and brand and advertise." And he said, "Oh no, keep it very quiet.
We can't advertise this.
We're
Yeah.
working for the law firms and we
Yeah.
don't want them to think we're stealing their partners. We can't talk about this at all." And at some point, that was just silly to me. And I understand his point of view. He had a client base that he wanted to keep, but at some point our interests really weren't aligned. It kind of happened sometimes to the partners I work with. They
Hmm.
sometimes when something was very good at the beginning and you're very grateful for the opportunity that you were given, it feels disloyal to
Yeah.
move on and find the right opportunity. And I finally had to say, this is silly. Like I can't do what I want to do in this platform from the perspective that we're working law firm facing. I
Yeah.
want to be candidate facing. I'm gonna have to start my own business. I'll have to figure it out.
Yeah.
I did some I did, my husband calls it a mini MBA. It was like a little,
Oh,
it was like
good.
an online thing about like how to start your own business and in like it wasn't just geared toward recruiting, but it was like for coaches and other kind of consultants.
Yeah.
And there was so much homework and I was very serious about it. And my husband's like, I hope you're getting a graduate degree at the end of this. But it really helped me feel more confident about starting the business and knowing the pieces. Like I knew I had to get malpractice insurance and I had to register the business and I had to
Yeah.
get the URL and I had to figure out which databases I needed and which tools I needed and which things I could do without until I grew a little bit more and then I started it.
Yeah. So I want to come back to what you were saying about, that push-pull between, you want to work with the individuals and the firm you were working with works with the firms. But I do want to first stay on that notion of that you never thought that you would be a business owner. At what point did you start to think of yourself not just as a business owner, because that permeates after a while, you're the one who's in charge. When did you start to think of yourself as like the CEO of this organization? This, to me, that's a different kind of mindset. Like, I am the CEO of this organization. I have a business. I am growing this business. I'm not just running it because you can get help in running it, but I am growing this business. Was that something that came about slowly, or was it like that from the beginning for you?
Well, a vision of how I wanted to do it a little bit from the beginning. And I knew it would require some help. And
Mhm.
because I had had a little bit of coaching and training before I started it, I knew a little bit about trying to do the things that I was best at, that were in my zone of genius, and trying to hire out for the things that I was really terrible at when I could. So for a while, I did my own bookkeeping, and that was one of the first things I was glad to let go of.
Yes.
I never tried doing my own marketing. I had some pretty low level marketing help at the beginning. It was my hairdresser's boyfriend was getting an MBA in online marketing and wanted to practice on someone. So he made me a really really inexpensive deal, and he was helpful for what it was,
Yes.
and we moved to better marketing when we could afford it. And I started with just the database for partners in New York and New Jersey, and then I expanded because we were doing a lot of work in Florida, and then we knew that we were going to need the 50 state database, and we knew that as we were going, I had some more help, and I started to have the vision of what I ultimately wanted to accomplish. And, I talked to the guy who I used to work with. We're still friendly. And he said, I never understood, you see it as like a business. And you're building something and trying to scale it. I wanted to keep it as small as possible to get the job done, and you seem to want to grow it. That's just a different way of thinking about it.
Mhm.
And I want to grow because I personally can't help every unhappy rainmaker partner, because I have limited time. I
Yeah.
have other things I have to do. I have to sleep sometimes, but I wanted to have enough resources to help as many people as I could find that exact right perfect fit, whether it was a rainmaker moving firms or providing resources to somebody who was deciding what to do with a law degree next, or dealing with some issues they were having at their firm.
Yeah. Yeah. So now going back to, the different the different way that you chose to work, in the legal world, of course, it's not uncommon for lateral hires, lateral partners to leave their new firm really within a few years. And because your model is different, you focus on the lawyer, not the firm. How does that focus then help your clients land somewhere that is more likely to really fit for them so they don't become part of that, whatever it is, somewhere between 40 and 60% of laterals who leave within 5 years?
Yeah, I think we do a lot of work in the beginning talking about, like, why is it we're talking today? What is it that made you curious about having this conversation? And we have a lot of false starts with many of our candidates over the years, like, this is it, I'm leaving. And then they go on vacation and they come back refreshed, or this is it, I'm leaving, and they get a big bonus, or they have an interesting deal to work on, or an interesting trial coming up, or something happens in their family that makes it advantageous to have this job that they've already built up a lot of goodwill. Somebody's maybe they're having another child, or somebody's sick and needs their attention, and it's easier to stay, where they have a lot of goodwill over years. Or, sometimes the firm will address what's going wrong as well as it can, and
Mhm.
they want to give it some time to see if it works. So I guess we do a lot of work with that particular candidate to figure out what is it that's going wrong, and also what's going right. What would you like to replicate that
Yeah.
you have at the firm that you wouldn't want to give up? And, what is going wrong? Is there anything else? And sometimes people come to us, oh, I think I might be underpaid, or, oh, we don't have a Chicago office and I could have $2 million more business if I'm turning stuff away because we don't have an office in Chicago, or we don't have an IP licensing practice and one of my clients really needs it. But when you dig a little deeper, sometimes there are other things that are missing. There are other things that they've learned to live without, that they didn't know existed, that, they're not so important. But we find that most candidates come to us for one thing. And when they find what we think is their exact right, perfect fit firm, they report back to us that a really long list of things have improved and they're surprised. They're like, I thought I was just, getting better associate help, but the people are nicer and the marketing's better and I love going to work or, they're really helping me grow or I didn't realize how much I didn't like the people I was working with.
Wow.
I didn't realize I was going just to have better marketing help. I didn't realize how underpaid I was, or I didn't realize how much the firm was keeping me back, and I could have expanded more and grown more. So there are a lot of different things. I mean, COVID actually helped a lot of the type A working people who were, you know, willing to work till 4 in the morning see their families. And some of them like their families. And
Some.
hey, not everyone does. And again, we have no judgment. We will place somebody who only wants to work remotely when they tell us why. And I would be happy to work with somebody who only wants to go to a firm where everybody's required to come into the office. There was somebody I was working with who said, I prefer to work from the office. I'm more productive and efficient there, but I'm the only one there and I'm lonely. I want to go to a firm that has some requirement for some days in the office, so I'm not the only one there every day. And on the other hand, there are people who have learned to work from home during COVID shutdown and find that they're much more efficient and get much more done and get to have a life outside of the office without their commute. And they don't want to go to an office that has any requirements. So it really is very individual. And
Yeah.
some people like their families and no judgment. Some people want to be at the office and don't
Yeah.
want to be with their families.
So it sounds like the whole process really of working with you, that the way you dig in to tell me what's going on, it really can lead to a lot of self-reflection. I mean, are you ever in a position where the answers to the questions you're asking don't come so readily? And maybe a candidate who you're working with, somebody you're working with is kind of like, well, why are you asking me these questions? Are they always open for the conversation, or do you ever get some kind of surprise at the questions you're asking and what comes up, you know?
Well, I always say that it takes me 15 minutes or less to decide whether I could help someone or not. It's really probably more like 5 minutes because there are a lot of people who say, like, I want to leave law. I want you to help me. Okay, well, what don't you like? Well, it used to be so great. I loved it when so and so was the managing partner. I loved coming to work and I really enjoyed the collaboration and I got paid fairly and I had all the resources I needed. And then they made this other guy the managing partner, and now it's just terrible. I just don't want to be a lawyer anymore. And I have to help them realize that it sounds terrible. You're right. But is he the managing partner at every law firm in the United States? Sounds very specific to this one leader. And you enjoyed practicing law before. If we could find you an environment that feels more like that, it sounds like you might enjoy practicing law again. They say, yeah, that would be great. Well, I guess, it's hard to see the forest for the trees sometimes. And then some people call me, I want you to help me find a new law firm. Okay, well, what don't you like about your firm? And we get to, this is an exaggeration, but I don't like clients. I don't like judges. I don't like lawyers. I don't like billing time. I don't like reading or writing or speaking. I want to work outdoors. Like there are no law firms that
It's
can
so
meet all of
clear that, yeah.
that. Like there is not a law firm that is going to be able to address those concerns that you have. Probably you want to use your law degree to find a way to have those things,
Yeah.
unless there's an outdoor law firm I'm not aware of.
With no lawyers
No lawyers,
and
no
no
judges,
reading or
and no
writing or
clients.
speaking.
No clients.
Yeah. So I want to get to the work that you're doing now. You've created a wealth of resources, of course, for lawyers at different stages of their careers, including the Six Pillars framework that's on your website. So let's talk about why that was so important for you. And of course, then I want to hear about the book, since I didn't even know there was going to be a book until we just signed on today. But why was this so important to you?
Well, I always say I'm trying to improve the legal industry one rainmaker at a time. So we always thought that, we really can only proactively find a job for someone who's bringing revenue. That's why we talk about rainmakers, because otherwise you have to wait until a firm needs a lawyer because they have to have enough work to keep that lawyer busy. So if you bring your own work with you, you can bring a whole lot of work and have your own team. You can bring enough work for just you, but you get to look for another job. But we thought if those people got happy, they would be nicer to be around. So they'd be better supervisors and mentors and better bosses. They'd be better to be in the office next door or on the same floor as. And maybe if enough rainmakers found their exact right perfect fit, law firms would become more pleasant, right? But I get approached by a lot of lawyers in a lot of different stages, and many of them aren't experienced enough and don't have their own clients to be represented in the way that we represent our rainmakers. And I always tried to help connect them to some other resources, but we wanted to have something so that at 2 in the morning or 4 in the morning when I'm sleeping, because I don't work at a big nasty law firm, somebody who's at work and has reached that last straw moment could find a way to have enough resources to either relax or build business or change firms or figure out how to work things out where they are
Mhm.
or set some boundaries, whatever it was that was an issue for them. And of course, I'd be happy to talk to them, but I'm not accessible at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And we wanted to leave a framework that was. So I alluded to the fact that a lot of law schools aren't teaching the importance of building relationships from a very early stage and trying to build business or at least having it in mind. I was told, keep your head down and do your best work, and clients will just find you.
Yeah.
That's like telling, I'm sure you probably have had a friend who really would like to meet a life partner, but stays home in her sweats watching Netflix every night. And nobody knows where you live. They're not going to call you,
Yeah.
find you for a date. No client knows that you exist if you keep your head down and do good work and don't do any business development activity. They can't find you magically. So the problem with that is even if you're a wonderful lawyer and even if you can be promoted to partner because there's enough work to make a business case to make you a partner, even without your own clients, you're always subject to somebody else's schedule.
Mhm.
And it's hard to have a life when you have to be on call all the time. Somebody else decides when we're having the conference call to talk about the project. When is the deadline going to be? When will the team get together? When will this happen? When will this happen? And they want you to be on it right away. And it's really hard to say no because your value to the law firm is based on being the go-to person and the hours you bill and they collect on. When you become a rainmaker, when you have your own clients, you're bringing in revenue to the firm in two separate ways. So they're
Yeah.
not really counting your hours as carefully because you're bringing in a lot of revenue with your clients. Sometimes you can bring in a deal in another department and go home early and have dinner
Yeah.
with your family because somebody is billing to your attorney number.
But you have much more freedom when you
Yeah.
reach that rainmaker point of your career.
So the six pillars is a way to become a rainmaker because that gives you some control over your career, but be successful and happy at the same time.
Yeah.
So care for yourself is the first pillar because you have to be alive to do the rest of them. And some lawyers are burning the candle at both ends. And unfortunately, lawyers have a very, very high rate of suicide
I
that
know.
a lot of people are spending a lot of time looking at, but we're not solving that issue very well yet. And there are a lot of drinking and drug
Addiction issues.
issues.
Yeah.
And, there are a lot of issues like that. And there are a lot of issues where people just aren't taking care of themselves. They're not sleeping. If you don't
Mhm.
sleep for 40 years of a career, that causes mental illness. And we always say it's really hard to, if you think of yourself as an Olympic athlete, you are responsible for giving the highest level legal analysis to your clients that you possibly can. If you're not sleeping or eating any healthy food or getting any movement into your day,
How
you know,
can you do that?
you're not doing a great job
Yeah.
anyway. And those are the lawyers who unfortunately have a fatal heart attack in the office at
Yeah.
47. So it was very important to me to make sure we address that in a way that law firms could sign on to also. So
Yeah.
when we're telling people to take care of themselves, it's in the framework of law firms are a business. You can't work only Tuesdays for 2 hours. You still have to be a full-time working lawyer, but carve out some time for sleep and good, all of that. And then our second pillar is build business because it's really important to both you and beneficial to the law firm if you're looking out for how you could bring in new matters from existing clients or bring in new clients or at least strengthen those relationships from a very early stage. And then we talk about having some planning intentionally and creating some boundaries and learning continuously because everything changes. And if you change what you're interested in, if you've learned continuously, you can pivot a little bit and do the thing that you like better, or the industry might change a little bit. Nobody knew what was going to happen once we had Lexis and Westlaw when they were filling the libraries with books.
Yeah.
Now we have AI.
Yeah.
So being on top of what's on the minds of your clients, so you could be really helping them more, but also learning things. So if you decide that you don't like what you're doing or what you're doing dries up, you can find something else to do. But the last one is to create a legacy because I find there are a lot of lawyers who gave up everything to be successful lawyers. They're on their third divorce and their kids aren't speaking to them and they haven't taken care of their health and they don't have any hobbies or any friends and they can't think of what they might do when they retire. So they hang on much longer than they
Yeah.
meant to. And, they're not doing their best work anymore and they've, you know, kind of exhausted what they can do at the firm. And we wanted to show them that it's good to be known for something and to find something exciting that you want to do
Yeah.
so that you can go and be a professor or write a book or be a mentor or keep referring business to the firm or work part-time, but at some point having a healthy retirement is a good idea.
Yeah.
So I've been trying very hard to get all of this material to as many people as possible because I my dream is that we never hear about another lawyer suicide ever again. And I think that we're not close to that yet. And I keep hearing about things. So we've been filming the Happy Rainmaker videos. You were in one of them
Yes.
with us. They're 6 minutes at a time because we say point one can make a difference. And we thought people could fit them in during, the lag time when they're waiting for a partner to look at something or a client to turn comments or something like that. Or at 2 in the morning when they hit the breaking point, they could just binge them and learn everything they can about making the changes that they'd like to make. But because we can't get that to everyone in the world, I was thinking that I've always really liked reading business parables. Maybe it's because I was an English major, but it feels like I'm not trying to continue my workday of reading. It's a fun story, but you get to learn something in the process. And I'm a huge admirer of the Go Giver series. So I've written a book that I hope is the Go Giver for lawyers. It's called The Happy Rainmaker, and it's about Bob Biglaw, and we meet his friends Sam Solo and Susie Smalllaw, and it's all about applying the six pillars to have a sustainable career. Anybody can do the no sleep and, stay up all night and whatever for a while, but we want to have a really long career that's enjoyable that we can stick with for 40 years. And I think the six pillars is the way to do it.
I love that. And I love how the first pillar and the sixth pillar all they start, it starts with taking care of yourself and it ends with taking care of yourself. And in between comes your career, but you have to bookend that with taking care of yourself as a human being because you are also more than a lawyer.
Yes. And I think, at different points in your career, you have uh, different kinds of leverage and pull at the firm. But we've talked to really accomplished lawyers, somebody who is the global head of finance at a major firm said, look, we decide on vacations as a department. If there was a first year that had to go to his sister's wedding, he should speak up. And of course he gets that time off. But if you just say, "Oh, I feel like having that week in July," you're the lowest person on the totem pole.
Yeah.
You just joined. So he said, one of the things that he hopes people are doing is communicating and being reasonable.
Yeah.
You can go to, your sister's wedding. You can go to your best friend's something, but you can't go to every college friend's out of town wedding that happens every week where you have to miss time from work when you're a first year associate. You have to be a little bit reasonable. But, when you are reasonable, it's amazing how much people want to help you.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness. I cannot. When is the book coming out? Do you have a
January 2026.
what a great way to start
Yeah.
the year.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay. You'll have to share the news with me so I can share it with my network as well, because, I'm a big believer in what you're doing. I think it really makes a difference. And I'm glad that we were able, I'm glad that I got to break the news about the book here. So, I have one last question for you because, believe it or not, this is time has flown by. But my question that I always like to end with is, what unexpected lessons or rewards have come up for you for going around your own ladder rather than climbing that law firm ladder and staying with that associate, then counsel, and then partner?
Well, I have to say, I did feel a little bit like a failure leaving the law firm. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be a recruiter for a year and then I'm going to go back because that's the holy grail. And I will say that I like this so much better than I liked practicing. And I really enjoyed my legal practice. I'm not like some recruiters who were running from it. I thoroughly loved it at the time. But this is my true calling. This is the thing I was here to do. And I love it. And if I had been more closed-minded and made myself stick with being in a law firm, I never would have had the opportunity to discover this. And I think I could help a lot more people doing this than I did in my legal practice.
Ah, and that's what it comes down to, because you are helping a lot of people, which is really wonderful. Thank you so much. I am so glad that we got to do this. I really appreciate the time. This has been so much fun, and I learned more about you, which was one of my goals too. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'll be sure to send you a copy of the book as soon as
Oh,
we
thank
get them
you. I have
hot
your
off
other
the
books. I have
presses.
the other books that you sent to me also. I keep all of them, and I read them, and I read them. So
Well, we made it a quick read. You'll be able to read it on any plane flight, I promise.
wonderful, wonderful. Well, that is it for this episode of Around the Ladder. Remember, there is no one right way up, so take your detours, make your moves, and keep carving your own path. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend or a colleague or a lawyer who is on their own unconventional journey, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.